Well, hello everyone. Ogre27 Kane here today, and we're going to do a review of Silent Hope for the Nintendo Switch. Let's do a little bit of an overview and figure out what this game is all about. So this game is an isometric top-down dungeon crawler with roguelike aspects. This game is a complete hidden gem, and I had no idea this game even existed until I saw the collector's edition sitting in the store at GameStop. I fell in love with the packaging, bought the game, took it home, and have been pleasantly surprised ever since. Yes, it does have some traditional old dungeon crawling mechanics. You go from floor to floor and loot and loot and loot. But the game has an absolutely fantastic combat system and a pretty good story to go along with it. The story on top of that really flows well and keeps the game moving. I really enjoyed this game. So let's start out with the first category, the gameplay. So, this is a traditional top-down dungeon crawler as you would expect, but the combat mechanics in this game really flesh it out and make this game a lot more fun than most dungeon crawlers I've ever experienced. The fact that your character has 3 different classes with 3 different abilities tied to each class that you learn, and 7 different characters, each with their own unique classes and abilities, really push you to try new things and play the game over and over and over. I personally chose one character, and you'll see the first third or so of my playthrough with this character in this video, but the rogue is my favorite character and has the funnest abilities in my opinion. After I finished with her, I decided to go back and try some of the other characters, and they all have enough variation to them and enough difference to really push you to try them out. I really like the Wanderer as he's kind of a traditional sword fighter, but he has some pretty cool abilities. The items and weapons in this game really encourage you on top of that to keep looting and exploring. You have leveled items with you, but there are different tiers such as common, rare, super rare, and legendary items. The legendary items are totally worth it and have caused me to go back into each dungeon over and over and over just to try to fully kit out legendary items on everybody. Now, from what I understand, there's a ton of post-game on top of this too. I haven't fully gotten there because I'm trying to get everywhere with all of the characters. So let's move on to the next category, the story. So at the beginning of this video, I kind of show off a bit of the intro and it explains a good deal of the story. The story in this sees a king who decided to steal the kingdom's voices, that's right, all their words, and he jumped into a giant hole and never showed back up. His daughter, the princess, cried for 100 years encasing herself in this giant glass tear, if you will. Your characters show up out of the abyss randomly one day and hear the princess out in her plight to save the world. Now, the princess can only give her power to one character at a time to explore the abyss, so you have to choose amongst the 7. But once you've made your choice, and this flows fairly organically with the story and mechanics, but you get into the dungeon and you realize that maybe one character may be suited for a better area than another. So the cool thing is, there are tons of save points all along inside the dungeons that you can use to either go back to the town or to trade to different characters. Each character maintains its own level, its own equipment, and its own abilities. So you may have a really strong character in one area and a really weak character in another. Now, I do have to mention that although the story is kind of shown in beats and elements between dungeons and areas, the game does have a really nice twist to the end of the story. So let's hit combat now. So the combat in this game is truly where it shines. I absolutely loved it. Yes, you have your plain old attack button and a dodge button, but you also have 3 different skills, and you can map any button to any direction, any arrow, any key you want to. I absolutely loved this because I hated the original control scheme, and once I set it up the way I wanted to, the game really lends itself to my style of combat. With my rogue here, I have essentially 2 different dash moves on my trigger plus a dash, so I can triple dash around and have 2 finishers on top of that. Some of the other characters have different abilities that allow you to set up different strategies, such as the mage, being able to fire multiple projectiles at one time. The combat in this game is really deep and really rich, and honestly, I didn't get a full handle on it until about halfway through the game when I realized how much control I actually had. Being able to map any of these skills and combos anywhere you want to really make a difference, and really make this game stand out. So in my opinion, the combat in this dungeon crawler is one that most dungeon crawlers should take a lesson from, and really keep the game engaging all the way through. So let's move on to the next category, the graphics and animations. So I'm not gonna lie, this category was a little rough for me at first. I am not a fan of the chibi art style. In fact, I kinda hate it and it really pushes me away from a lot of games. I didn't really trust this game at first and I thought it was gonna be very similar to a lot of those games that I've played like that. That is not true. The art style in this is very much like the Alliance Alive if you've ever played that. Yes, it is chibi, but is very rich, very in-depth, and the animation quality is top-notch. On top of that, your characters move with a certain fluidity, and your contact, your collision detection with the enemies is really good. I didn't feel like I had any cheap deaths to getting caught on the side, and you can run into enemies without hurting yourself, so it allows you to kind of get into the fray and throw around a close-range melee character. I really enjoyed the graphical quality in terms of the special moves too, and the bosses, because they really did put a lot of time and effort into showing the different variation and the giantness of the boss. I'm sorry to use that word, because it's not real, but it really truly explains the feeling you get when you see them in the opening intro of their fight, and they're chasing you around the room, and it really sets a good mode for tension. The animation quality in this, I do have to mention, is a little stilted at some points when you're fighting certain enemies, but none of that affected your combat at all. It just looked a little weird when they did something funny, such as that turnip guy and how he turns halfway through an attack. After I got used to that though, it really didn't bother me at all. So let's move on to controls and audio now. So we're going to start with the audio, and the audio in this game is fantastic. So we're going to start off with the boss fight, which I believe really shows and highlights all the cool parts and aspects of this sound. So let's take a listen. Pretty darn tootin' awesome if you ask me. Not much more I can say about it, I loved it. The controls, as well, are fantastic in this. They really made me mad at first, but once I learned I could remap them and change them around, changed the game for me. And it really sets a precedence for what you can do in this game if you're willing to take the time, learn it, and set it the way you want it. I have no complaints with the controls in this game. I really think they did a great job, and I love the fact that I can map and move everything. I wish every game would take this into account. Let's do conclusion now. So in conclusion, I think this game is an absolute gem. I really didn't know what to expect when I saw it sitting on the back of a dusty old shelf in the back of a GameStop, but now after having played it, I am absolutely blown away and wish I would have bought this day one to support this studio. Marvelous is fantastic, and I love Daemon X Machina, and I love most of the other stuff they've done. This game right here is worth its price point. It was only $40 for the brand new physical collector's edition, which came with an art book, 2-disc soundtrack, and a full color manual with all the story beats and elements. So I really highly recommend checking this game out. If you can find it or pick it up fairly cheap, it's worth every penny. Heck, I would have paid $60. So thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.